All right, Mr. Mayor, let's get started.
I call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. on April 21st, 2022. Can I get a roll call?
Councilmember Dutta.
Present.
Councilmember Glazer.
Present.
Councilmember Homan.
Present.
Councilmember Johnston.
Present.
Councilmember Kelly.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Mishi is running late. Mayor Bone.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Now, can you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we have public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes, or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names in order that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Homan, the city administrator, and Ms. Johnston, the city attorney. First of all, as you just read, Mayor, I'm not required to give you my name, so I'm not going to. Although I am a long-term member of this community, my family goes back generations, and that's why you should listen to me more than someone who just moved here just a few years ago, even a decade ago. And so I do want to comment under public comments today about two things. Well, first of all, I don't think 3 minutes is adequate. I have a lot to say, and I want 10 minutes, but it's something I'd like you to take up on a future council agenda, more time for the public to speak about things that they believe are relevant. I'm sorry, Council, am I interrupting you? Can you please pay attention to what I'm saying, Mr. Homan?
I apologize, sir. We were working on making sure the timer, so you have your full 3 minutes, is working. We're at 2 minutes now.
Well, let's start the clock over again because, so again, I'm a long-term resident. My two issues are two things that we have too many of. We have too many raccoons in this village, and we have too many tourists, too many visitors. So I propose that, much like Pebble Beach, we put a fence around the 1 square mile that is Carmel-by-the-Sea, where people are required to pay to come into the village, pay a hefty fee to preserve the character. And number two, I think we've got too many raccoons. I'm not proposing that we eradicate them. I'm proposing that we trap them and move them out to the former Fort Ord or some adjacent community, not Pacific Grove, but some other community nearby. So I thank you for your attention, and I expect to see these items on a future agenda.
Thank you, honored community member. We will take that into consideration.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Cindy Lloyd. All due respect to the previous speaker, I've been living in Carmel longer than he has. I was born here 80 years ago, and 63 years ago, I sat where you sat when I was a senior at Carmel High School. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to learn about our city government. I was fortunate to be with the Commissioner of Streets and Roads, who was the head of Public Works at the time, and I got to learn about seal coating the streets. So they seal coated the street that I had grown up on. And basically you throw a lot of sticky black stuff on the road, and then you throw a lot of gravel on top of it, and that's the way you preserve the roads back in those days. I also used to ride a horse down Ocean Avenue, and Betty Green had a stable in town, and she had a surrey with a fringe on top and gave tourist rides through town. So there's been a lot of progress, if you want to call it that, in Carmel in my time. Chip happens to, oh, I told you what his name was. We have a wonderful mayor, we have a wonderful council, we have great city staff, wonderful city administrator. And so thank you so much for giving your time and being interested in Carmel. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Bob. I've never been a resident of the city. However, I'm a raccoon herder. I take great offense to any kind of insults about my raccoons. These are my babies, and I love all of the raccoons. Also, one last thing is the garbage trucks are particularly smelly, so thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jonathan Lyons. It is my privilege to be the principal at Carmel High School. And if I'm going to be serious for a minute, not that I don't enjoy a good raccoon moment, that I just wanted to take a second to say how proud I am of all of you for the work that you do representing our school, representing this community. Oftentimes, I think the folks who don't have a chance to work at a high school don't understand the work that you put in to do the things that you do just to go to class, but to do these things above and beyond, to do all the things that I know you all do in terms of other programs. Most of you are involved in sports and clubs and 10,000 other things and probably should be home right now studying for AP exams, but just to take the time to learn about the inner workings of the city council and the government and how you can have an impact. Don't ever let it be said that the minds of students can't change things once you get into the right positions. And with all due respect to the current administration, I think the future looks really bright. If even half of you are in this role in your future adulthood, I think we're in a pretty good place. And I look forward to seeing you all in action. And I want to also extend my appreciation to the City of Carmel, the City Council, for taking this project up again and allowing our kids to have this experience. It's been a wonderful opportunity for us as a school to partner with the city. So really, I cannot say enough about this, and I hope it's something we can grow each year so that you get a chance to see what I get to see every day, which is that these are some amazing young men and women, and I truly have the best job in Carmel. So thank you very much for everything that you all do. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Principal Lyons.
Okay, well, if there's no one else that would like to make a public appearance, we will be receiving presentations on the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and provide direction to staff. Can I please have an introduction from the city administrator?
Gladly. Welcome, everyone. This year we have our staff has anticipated that there will be a surplus in the city budget, which is currently $26 million as an operating budget. We anticipate that the city's three major revenue sources, property taxes, sales taxes, and occupancy taxes, will remain strong in the coming fiscal year. And with the extra funds being $315,000 and $428 of the $226 million operating budget. Excuse me. And we have screened the possible uses for this budget in the public safety, public works, planning and building, library and community activities, and they have all submitted recommended projects for the council's review. And I would now like to call the first project for review from administration.
That would be the Assistant City Administrator. Ryan, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As the Assistant City Administrator, I'm overseeing the health and safety of all our employees. Throughout the organization, to Public Works, to administrate, my goal is in the best interest to continue the health and safety of our workers. That's why I am promoting a one-time payment of $50,000 to hire a risk and safety consultant to check and verify the safety of our workers who may have potentially be putting themselves in danger with without following OSHA violation, without following OSHA rules, to preemptively prevent any form of injury. Yeah. I yield my time to questions.
If I may interject here, I'd like to know what the possible dangers could be, just further clarification.
Well, you see when there's like a rainstorm, perhaps, what if a power line goes out and the guys that aren't trained have only been here for very minimally? I'm not saying that we aren't following OSHA regulations. I'm saying we could take further effects to help and prevent any preventable injuries from happening.
If I may, I would like to clarify, so this is a one-time cost, it won't be
I mean, yeah, so train the current employees to risk and consult with them to see how they perform these tasks. Like say a power line goes out, say an energy converter goes out, something dangerous potentially that many of these employees may not have any experience with. They could have preemptive, can hire a reliable worker who knows what they're talking about to help interject with these communities.
And do you have any statistics for, what this might save us, or?
Well, you hear all the time, man falls down from building from man that didn't know what he was doing, first day on the job, plop.
If I may, I have a question. Shouldn't this be done in the training of before they start on the job? Shouldn't this be done in order for them to get the job?
That's
Shouldn't
what
they
I'm
be
saying.
trained?
It should be.
So why do we need to now pay you more to have this be done?
Are you saying that the current status of our, I'm asking to prevent preventable injury from what could possibly happen. So
I see,
a risk
yes.
consultant could help further any possible injuries. Last thing you want to see is Carmel man falls from the power line.
Mr. Giulio, to your knowledge, are these incidents and injuries, have any occurred recently? Is there a rate, or has this been a previous issue for us?
It could be.
Has it in the past, though? It has not in the past?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
Would the public like to ask any questions? I'm opening a public hearing. If there are no speakers, then we will close the issue.
I'd like to call the planning department. Possible budget.
Can you minimize this and move it to that other screen?
We have a basketball team in the planning department.
Yep, keep going it, keep dragging it. There it is, keep going, keep going. Oh, and then hit next.
And I will say that this actually often happens at meetings with computer and IT. And the public comments are pretty spot on, too.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Today, I would like to, I am the Planning and Building Commissioner, and my name's Jack Norman, and I would like to introduce the Design Traditions Project 1.5. So in essence, the Design Traditions Project and Zoning Code establish future guidelines for the architecture style and construction materials of future construction within Carmel-by-the-Sea, the city. The Design Traditions Project establishes the feel the essence of the city. So the colors, the style, the materials used are all influenced by the Design Traditions project, which will clarify what follows the guidelines that are suggested to maintain the culture of Carmel-by-the-Sea. And the zoning code is the law. It tells you the specific measurements, how if you have a second story building, what you need. And in essence, it is necessary to follow the zoning code, while the Design Traditions project is more of a suggestion for compliance with what we currently have as part of the culture of Carmel-by-the-Sea. And we had passed the original Design Tradition project 20 years ago, and now we are looking to continue and revamp that project to make sure it follows what we currently want Carmel-by-the-Sea to continue to grow and look like. So the recommendation is that we adopt a resolution awarding $140,000 to provide consultant support for the next Design Traditions project. And so the project history is that it has been nearly 20 years since the original city's residential and commercial design guidelines were passed. And these documents have continued to serve us for the past 20 years, which has been great for the budget. We haven't needed to revamp these guidelines for a while, and they've allowed the evolving nature of architecture to continue to flourish at Carmel-by-the-Sea. Now what we need is to revamp these so that they are now in compliance with what modern architecture is looking like, to continue to make sure that our city has the public appearance that we wish. The consulting firm that supported the project 20 years ago is Winter & Company, and we are looking to bring them back for this project. And the rationale for doing that is that they originally designed the project, so they already have an understanding of what is necessary, and Nori Winter agreed to lead the project again as she did last time. So that's going to be a great help, knowing that we have her support again. She understands the process and she's willing to work with us, which is amazing. So we should make sure that we pass this budget so that we can have her support. We do not want to lose her support in this project. So Winter & Company for the last 20 years have continued to do other projects, and they have been very successful in all their other projects. So I suggest that we continue to work with them as we did before. And we will also be updating the zoning code, because the zoning code goes hand in hand with the design guidelines. So it'll be necessary to update the zoning code, and Winter & Company will also assist with this. This will allow us to have a smoother transition. It will take a little more time, but it'll be worth it because we'll have a coherent structure to the way we're going to be changing the architecture in Carmel-by-the-Sea. And the importance of this project is immensely important to the culture of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Carmel-by-the-Sea is this place that people want to go to experience something they've never experienced before. And a lot of that is because of the architecture we have here in Carmel-by-the-Sea. Every year, 8 million tourists visit Carmel-by-the-Sea. And while we do have beautiful beaches, it is the culture, the heart and soul of the city, which is the architecture, that provides them with a unique experience. And so the funds awarded to this project will continue to have a lasting impact, hopefully for another 20 years. So this will be a one-time thing you need to pass, but for 20 years, you'll be able to see the effects of passing this as part of the budget. So the scope of services is shown in the PowerPoint. They will, in essence, be repeating what their exceptional work from their past times passing the guidelines, and they will pass the resolution ordinance, and in effect they will be spearheading this project to make sure that we are in compliance with what modern architecture in Carmel-by-the-Sea should look like. So there are two phases. The phase one is essentially the planning. It's the orientation, conditions, engagement, developing a strategy, and the direction. This is the before we dive in, we've got to make sure that we understand what we're going to do. It's extremely important, especially because we're planning the way the city will look for the next 20 years. Phase 2 will be the design guidelines, zoning amendments. We'll be talking with the community more, design guidelines, a second draft, and zoning amendments, a second draft as well, after reaching out to the community, and then we'll be implementing it. And so I'm hoping to get all $140,000 to implement this project, which will continue to support us for another 20 years. If that is not possible due to the current constraints of the budget, we could pass a $70,000 resolution for phase 1, which will be planning. However, the real meat of this project is in the second phase. So everything that we will be implementing directly will be part of the second phase. So in doing so, of only passing 70,000, we will be putting off the necessary amendments that we should put in place right now with the help of Winter and Company, so that we can make sure we see these changes as soon as possible. And that's all I have.
If I may, I would just like a little specification on the $140,000 will all be going to the consulting support? Is that where all the money will be?
Yes, it'll all be going to the consultants as they develop plans and then implement the new resolution.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a quick question. There are many people here in Carmel who love the quaintness of Carmel, the architecture that we have now. I think it could raise legal issues if we started changing it to be more modern. What would you say to if we just did the zoning, what zoning guidelines, is that what it was?
Yeah, the zoning guidelines is the specific legal guidelines.
And so would your system work if we just did the zoning guidelines and did not do the design guidelines?
The real importance of this project is the design guidelines. The zoning guidelines goes hand in hand with the project, but that's just to make sure that the implementation of the traditions, the new traditions, will be smooth. In essence, we are trying to protect that quaintness that the people of Carmel-by-the-Sea so love. We want to make sure that we continue to preserve that quaintness, right? That culture that we have here, while being able to expand on. In the last 20 years, we've had a lot of the architecture has changed, and we can see that. The recommendations will not change. Oh, we want a modern style. We want this new sort of way of building our. It won't be like that. It's to protect what we already have. We want to make sure that the community is in support of what we have. So we will be reaching out with them. We will be talking to the community. We will be making sure that those who wish to address the new guidelines do have their voice heard. And we have multiple drafts. We'll be doing multiple drafts to make sure that we include the opinion of the public, because that's what it's really about. It's really about protecting the essence of Carmel-by-the-Sea for the residents, and then allowing that to be shown to those who wish to visit Carmel-by-the-Sea as well.
If I may, on the you mentioned will be involving the public in this project. How many public meetings will this consulting firm and your department be conducting on this matter?
I do not have those numbers for you right now. I know that we will be revising the drafts for after public comment. So once we get the comment of the public, we will be revising it. So there will probably be a window of time in which the public has time to present their concerns. However, Winter and Company was extremely successful in doing this 20 years ago, and we have full faith in them that they can do it again. So we know that however they are planning to approach the project, we currently are in full support of however they plan to support it. So we do have a process put in place where we will be talking with them and revising it. However, what Winter and Company wish to do, we will support.
And if we hypothetically we were to fund the phase 1, the $70,000, would you be reliant on us to fund phase 2 as well, or would there be some outsourcing, some grant money, and other revenues you can look at?
So this phase 1 would be implemented this fiscal year. So we would be awarded this resolution for $70,000 for this fiscal year, and then in essence we're just splitting it up so we have time to get those new funds next year. However, and so we would be able to pass it would need to be passed another $70,000 resolution next year as part of continuation. But I suggest that the entire resolution is passed this year, currently, right now, so that we can, as soon as possible, implement this process. Phase 2 involves speaking with the public and everything, so that is going to take some time. We need to be able to make our plans and then implement them as soon as possible, especially considering the nature of our work with Winter and Company.
Do I understand correctly, though, that if we were to pay $70,000 now, that you wouldn't need the $70,000 for phase 2 to start until next year? We would have to delay phase 2 until next year. It is not that we do not need it until next year, it's that we would have to delay it until the next fiscal year, which again, I do not recommend, as it is not in the interest of Winter and Company, who supported us 20 years ago, and it will slow down the process of making sure that we protect Carmel-by-the-Sea and their architecture.
Just to clarify, I also have a question following. However, so if we would we be granting you all $40,000 or $140,000 today, or would that $70,000 today with a promise that another $70,000 would come following?
If you were to promise all $140,000 today, we could begin that process immediately and continue on to phase 2 as soon as phase 1 is done. If you were to split it up and do $70,000 and $70,000, correct, you would delay the process and also delay the progress that Winter and Company could make, because we would not be able to pay them. So we need to implement this project as soon as possible, which I strongly suggest due to the nature of our agreement with Winter and Company. I would suggest that we get that we get all $140,000 now. If necessary, it is a possibility to do $70,000 and $70,000. However, it will not be as efficient of a resolution in terms of implementing the project.
Thank you. Also, as we know, sustainability is a big thing for the future. Would there be do you know if the company has any ideas about sustainable and green practices to implement into our city? Because that would be very much preferred.
They will not be doing any construction. So if you're asking if Winter and Company will be using sustainable practices, they will not be doing any specific construction, so they won't have to do anything like that.
More to clarify, like when they would be designing new things to implement into the city, would those designs consider sustainability?
They do not design the buildings either. What they do is they have guidelines for designing the new project. So when an architect comes to design a building in Carmel-by-the-Sea, they will look to these guidelines so that they can make sure that they're following the cultural values of Carmel and making sure that the new projects fit with Carmel-by-the-Sea. They will not be any specific designs. It's more of guidance, like it's a light to show you the way to what we in Carmel-by-the-Sea consider to be a positive addition to the architecture in our city.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. I would advise that the mayor moves to the next department.
And this is where I'll jump in as the narrator. this is a good example of where things can get a little down too in the weeds with this. And this is a good example of the city administrator and the mayor saying, hey, let's get up out of the weeds. Let's hear from the rest of the presenters and keep the meeting moving along. We may come back to the weeds later, but for the time being and for this point of the process, that's a good move by the mayor and city administrator so everybody gets heard.
On that note, are there any public comments? Okay, then thank you for your time, and we can move on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members.
I'd now like to call the Library and Community Activities Department.
You got it just like that. Perfect. Yeah, just so it should work by itself. Technical difficulties, just a moment. There we go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Ava. Oh, technical difficulties.
You may proceed with your presentation by the computer if you'd like.
Oh, okay. Do I just turn it? Okay, wait. Slideshow, I think? Oh, no. No, you're good. Just slideshow? Oh. Okay. Do I just, like, turn it to y'all? Okay. This is going to be hard when I can't see it. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Ava Valdez, and I'm the Director of Library and Activities, and I'm going to be advocating for the most pressing project currently. So, my pitch is music in the park. So, this idea has actually happened before. We've established this with the 4th of July celebration that we did in Devendorf Park. It was largely attended this year. And we're hoping to reestablish that. We had live music. We didn't have food, but there were many bands which played very patriotic songs.
Would you mind moving the microphone?
Like here?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have established this before, a music in the park kind of concert theme. Okay. So the band that we chose is Tame Impala. Tame Impala is very popular nowadays. They have a #1 hit, and we hope to establish them in Devendorf Park. Okay, so we have a couple of benefits for this. #1 is it would bring the community closer. And it would also get the economy going because people would be going out to dinner. There would be people coming to hotels, maybe people from the valley trying to check in, get a little closer to Tame Impala. So this would boost the economy, and it would also just create a bigger sense of community. Okay, and so here we have the prices. So Tame Impala was actually $10,000 to book, which is very surprising given their popularity. And the food would be about $1,000, and the sound system would also be around $1,000. But that's give or take if Tame Impala doesn't have a sound system of their own, which I would doubt they didn't. Okay, and so this is just a graph of the different bands that you can book. And on the top left is Tame Impala, and that's around $10,000. There was Childish Gambino for $50,000, but I didn't really want to make a pitch for around $70,000. Okay, and so the grand total that we calculated was around $14,000 and $14,500. So that's how much it would take to get Tame Impala to play in Devendorf Park. Any questions?
If I may, with the possible astronomical influx of visitors considering the popularity of the band in such a small area, do you plan to accommodate that with the funds you're already receiving, or do you have a other plan or another grant in place?
Well, actually, statistics show that 100% of Tame Impala listeners are actually Carmelites, so we wouldn't have that problem. Yeah. Any other questions?
Fair enough.
Will we be selling tickets, or is it just an open event?
It will be an open event.
How are we gonna arrange everyone in such a small area?
Well, we don't anticipate a great influx of people, but we've also had other events where we fit a great amount of people into the park before, so I don't doubt that we couldn't make room.
So for this event, would partial funding for this event allow you to outsource other revenue, receive grants for this, or would you require full funding to put this event on?
We definitely could outsource more funds if we didn't get the amount of funds that we needed for this project from the council. But I mean, I think the Library and Activities Department is looking towards getting all of the money from the council. I do think the Carmel community would put in a little bit of money to see Tame Impala, though, so I don't have any doubts about that.
If I may, I have a question. A few things. One, would we have to close any streets? Because with such a popular band, would you expect people from surrounding areas to possibly come in? So would we have to close any streets of sort? And also, is it fit into the budget for cleanup purposes or things to help the park if there's any destruction to the grounds with all the people? Is there room in the $14,000 for helping that situation?
So I would not presume that we would have to shut any streets down. There would be a no open door policy. We wouldn't allow any people from PG in, obviously. and for the grounds, for preservation of the wildlife in Devendorf, I do assume that Carmelites are very proper with the nature, so I don't think anyone would be trampling anything. We would have cleanup, though. We do anticipate that.
Thank you.
I have a question. Have you contacted Public Works to ensure the safety of the roughly 4,000 residents of Carmel?
Well, we wanted to get this passed before we talk to them, just to make sure that this would even happen.
I see. Thank you.
Adding on to that, would we need any security?
I do imagine that we could get some security if that was necessary, but Tame Impala does come with a security team of their own to protect them, so.
Going off of that, would we also need security to not allow PG people to come in?
I presume so, actually. They're very dangerous, so I think we should keep them out.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, would anybody from the public like to comment?
Who's going to be taping?
going to be paying for the security?
That would be in the budget, ma'am.
What part of the budget is security?
Well, originally we overestimated for food, so that would leave us with around $500 left for security.
For 2 people?
So
2 security guards?
Yep.
No.
'Cause
Procedurally,
that's what you're going to be paying for.
member of the public, I'm going to cut you off right there. So ask all of your questions all at once, and then we'll bring it back to the council afterwards. But thank you for that enthusiastic show of how public meetings can go.
Oh. Are there any more questions? Okay, well, thank you, and we can move on.
I'd like to invite the police department for their pitch on the budget. Officer Lehman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Lily Lehman, and I am here representing the police department. I will be discussing the need for cameras downtown. These are the two most common questions and concerns regarding this topic. These cameras would be used for evidence gathering for if a crime was committed anywhere downtown. These cameras would not be used to spy on anyone. Recordings would only be reviewed to backtrack footage if a crime was committed. Carmel is a heavily populated tourist town, as we know. Especially in our downtown area, we depend on tourism to keep the businesses alive. Having crime downtown makes people feel unsafe, and tourists don't go to places where they will feel unsafe. Therefore, high crime rates will lead to a decrease in tourism, which would be devastating for our businesses. Since installing the existing cameras, officers estimate that twice as many crimes are solved now. By installing more cameras, we can build on the success in places where crimes are occurring. In court, evidence is needed to make a strong case, or a case at all. Video proof can often make it easier to prosecute criminals. For example, in San Diego, Christine Engelhardt was drugged, raped, and killed by 2 men. Both men were caught on surveillance footage entering a hotel with the impaired victim. This was how they were caught. Without that footage, 2 people responsible for someone's death might have never been prosecuted. Currently, if any crime happens downtown, unless it's caught already on the existing cameras, the police have to do a lot of investigation, which could be unnecessary if we have more cameras. With more cameras, the police can save time and money by reviewing the footage. This will make the police department more efficient in solving crimes and keeping the public safe. This is some information. The cameras would be in 3 locations. These are the locations to have the estimated most crime: Dolores and Ocean, San Carlos and Ocean, and Juniper and Ocean. There would be 5 cameras per location, getting different angles and areas. And as of money, it would be $25,000 per location, so $75,000 total as of now, and then $45,000 yearly to keep them up. I would like to ask the City Council to consider the need for cameras and approve the $75,000 cost for the installation of the cameras and the $45,000 yearly upkeep. Can I answer any questions?
Will these cameras be solely established on public property that is not private property in terms of buildings and businesses?
Yes.
Will the $45,000 need to come from us, or will it come from your budget each year?
It would come from you guys.
I have a question regarding so would you essentially come to the council each year and request $45,000 each year in the future?
Yes.
Okay, and with that, I assume that includes things like software updates, et cetera, keeping the cameras in good shape?
Yeah.
Why did you choose these 3 locations?
These 3 locations have the highest crime rates and the highest flow of traffic in our town. They're also 3 of the easiest access points for getting out of Carmel, which would make it easier to track license plate numbers and such.
I have another question. With the cameras, as you mentioned, possibly helping the police save time, would this save labor costs of the police, and would that be a possibility into putting into maybe yearly funds for updates and keep?
It could possibly, yes.
I do have a question for our legal counsel as to whether there might possibly be any legal concerns with these cameras, or has that already been sorted out?
Well, that's what I was about to ask, actually. I was wondering if, as you said on one of your first slides, if anyone comes to the police department or the city with realization that they are on camera and they pose issues, would the legal costs for that, would they be directly suing us, or would they be directly suing the police station?
They would be directly suing the police station, but we already have existing cameras in perimeter locations, and as of now, nothing has come up for people threatening to sue over these cameras. So I would predict that nothing more would come up with these new cameras.
Thank you.
Okay, and with no further questions, would the public like to make any comments? Okay. Please come to the podium.
Hello, Madam Mayor, Council. My name is Danny Doom. I'm very concerned, very concerned about crime in our community and everywhere else. It's going crazy. I'm so happy that you hired Chief Lehman to do your work here. The last chief, the interim chief, he was a bum, and it went totally bad when he came on board, and congratulations on hiring Chief Lehman. She's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
You know, I'm always, again, I'm not going to give you my name again. Long-term resident, never been to Pacific Grove. I dislike Pacific Grove more than most people, but nevertheless, I'm concerned about my civil liberties. I'm concerned about privacy impacts. I think there was a good question by one of you. What if, are these cameras being used to monitor my activity or my children's activity? Or is this really just for fighting crime? So I think that's something you really need to consider before you pass this measure. Thank you, Council.
Can I answer that question? So, going back to this, this video would never be accessed if it weren't to backtrack if a crime was committed. So there would be no one watching you. It would only be used for the better of safety in our community. That's all.
Are there any other questions? Oh. You can make your way to the podium.
Hi, my name is, anyways, whatever. I'm just wondering if that the problem is really visibility, and these cameras are like trying to sneak pictures through trees, and there's so many trees. If we were able to maybe thin some of these trees, first of all, raccoons go. You can see You can see the houses better. And then those could be made into drumsticks for music. There's so many solutions out of just taking down some of these trees. Thank you.
As that does not pertain to the police department, I advise the mayor to continue.
Are there any more questions from the audience? Okay, thank you, and we can move on.
Thank you.
I'd like to call our final presentation from Public Works.
I would just like to mention before we start that Officer Lehman, Public Works is the one that installs those cameras, but that's besides the point. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Tosin Aladakun, and I am the Director of Public Works. As most or all of you know, Carmel is a great town with a beautiful beach, wonderful shops, and an overall safe community to live in. However, as Public Works, we must maintain infrastructures of streets, storm drains, and parks. But the biggest challenge is old buildings. One of the old buildings we feel we should put our attention to is Flanders Mansion. Going on 100 years since it has been built, it has been closed because there is a lot of damage in the building and it has been deemed inhabitable. But for $350,000, we feel that this infrastructure can be renovated and used by the public, specifically high school students using it as a student lounge. Here is what we envision for that lounge. Foosball tables, TV system, vending machines, cafe, after-school tutoring programs that could also offer jobs to high school students, gaming system, and much more with much more planning. This building will be accessible to all residents. However, it will be more geared towards high school students because there are so many of us that stay up at the high school after school simply because they may not have the resources to get them home early. So we feel this is a beneficial resource in our community that will be beneficial for years going on. Now, as far as planning constructing goes, it would take at least a year to renovate the building. It would take $350,000, as I mentioned before, to renovate the building. And as far as reconstructing the building to make it into a student lounge goes, we would hope to get youth funding recreation opportunity grants. And if we do, it will most likely take a couple of months to get all the leisure equipment and furniture. There are lots of youth activity grants that would hopefully pay for our furniture, computers, and gaming system, foosball table, air hockey, and ping pong tables, and many other accommodations that we asked for. All these accommodations will benefit students in Carmel. As we all know, we see all those students at Carmel walking down to Bruno's and such, and because of the location of this mansion, it's pretty safe for them to walk from the lounge to Bruno's and accommodate walking spaces and to be back in a safe environment once they get back from Bruno's. We hope that this will benefit the students in Carmel so that they will continue to stay in a positive, productive, and protected community. If this is approved, I hope to see you all there, and Mayor Bone, I hope that you will run the first ping pong tournament. Any questions?
Would you mind clarifying the original budget request?
The original budget request is for $350,000 to renovate the building.
Would you mind elaborating on our current budget of the surplus is $315,000 and $428. Would you mind guaranteeing this is the best use of the funds, considering there will only be $428 left for the other departments?
I do understand this is a big ask. However, putting in this $315,000 to renovate one of our very old buildings that has been in Carmel in a long time and making it into a student lounge will not only benefit students at Carmel, but it will also integrate our Carmel High School with its community itself and overall benefit it through the long run. With those after-school tutoring programs, it will benefit those who ask for jobs and as well put money back into the building itself.
Can I ask, is the property zoned accordingly?
It actually, as of right now, I do not have its zoning policies on me at the moment, but from what I have read in reports, it actually has been zoned, and I read an article that said that this proposed idea to renovate the building has been asked 3 times now. However, it's been denied. But I'm asking not only to renovate the building, but reconstruct it so it benefits all those in the community.
So do you have an estimate on what the yearly maintenance would be from the city for this project?
Unfortunately, I do not. I do know that this will take a year to renovate the building. This is a proposed idea, so of course there will be more planning that will go on to understand how much it would cost to maintain the building yearly. But as of right now, I do not have that on me.
And in terms of access to this building, does your request include providing transportation from the high school or other schools to this location?
My request is not asking for that, simply because where our high school is located, it is perfectly safe walking distance. It's actually a shorter walking distance than it is to get to Bruno's, because it is located around Mission Trails Park, so it is a safe walking distance for those who choose to take their business that way.
I have a brief question as well. Is this exclusive to just high school students, or is it also just citizens of Carmel?
As I thought I mentioned before, this will be accessible to all residents who are in Carmel. However, the reason why I am gearing it more towards high school students is because this is the closest school to our town as of now, and there are many high school students who just sit after school and do not have anywhere to go, and this is a perfectly protected area that would allow them to do homework as they choose, or just to have leisure time with their friends, while keeping them in good walking area distance with their Carmel town.
Okay. Sorry. Now we will be asking if there are any public questions.
My name is Johnny Toolbox. I'm a building maintenance technician in Public Works. I've been there for most of my life, since I was a little child. We have to maintain Flanders Mansion. It's falling apart, as the council well knows from being there. It's very hard to maintain. There's rats, there's ceiling tiles that fall on the floor. It's just a mess. The question that one of the council members asked, rightfully so, was who's going to maintain it once it's completed? Well, it would be a blessing, because it will be fixed up. It'll be easy to maintain. So it would make life a lot easier for us going forward. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Hi there, my name is Aubrey Powers. I'm a teacher at Carmel High School, and I'm wondering about safety and supervision for a bunch of high school students that may be leaving the high school, and I'm interested to know what would be the idea in terms of funding supervision and oversight of a tutoring program, and how do we plan to coexist in this space should middle schoolers come to it as well, because I don't know that they're age appropriate necessarily with seniors and juniors in high school. So thank you.
As far as that goes, I understand that absolutely high school students should be monitored, and other middle school or elementary students who choose to come down to our student lounge that we are trying to propose. And I know that in Carmel, the people do a lot of community volunteer service, and specifically those who are of older age. And I know from personal experience that there have been those who have volunteered to do supervision projects of any sort. So I feel that if we brought that up, it would not be denied by those who would like to offer their volunteer services to us.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? If not, thank you for your time. And now it is time to bring back to the council for discussion on where to allocate the funds.
Shall we go in chronological order?
Who would like to begin?
Sure, yeah. So for the city administrator proposed project, I think safety training as a general idea is important. But for this particular issue, I didn't think there was a lot of background information. background information and understanding as to what this is for and what problem we're trying to address. So I think this is safety training and making sure that our employees are safe is definitely something to fund. I am not certain that it would be as presented. However, the first 4 items, we could fund all of those within our budget.
Are you suggesting, just to clarify, are you suggesting that we fund all of them in full for the amounts they requested?
I'm saying if we wanted to, we were able to, but at the same time, we don't have to do that.
Thank you.
I would just,
Nope, go ahead.
I would just like to repeat back to the police department. I do know that initially we could provide funds for all of the first 4 projected projects. However, the $45,000 a year following to do the upkeep would definitely exceed our budget. I know that's was expressed that it would be presented at a later date. But I also would like to mention that with the city administration project, as he mentioned, the history was resulted in a very safe history, as we didn't maybe, that $50,000 would not be most necessary at this time and could be put into the safety cameras in the future, which may directly help risks in the future, possibly.
And just to clarify, in terms of the $45,000 upkeep, that would be on next year's budget, so we wouldn't have to worry about that exceeding our current surplus.
Oh, well, that's good to know. We'd have another surplus.
I think another point to be made is I added up the totals, and for every pitch except for the final one, we can afford to do all of them except for the final one. So I think that's an interesting point.
I'd like to advise that maybe it should be taken into consideration the more beneficial it might be to consider maybe the final project to a lesser extent rather than maybe an event such as a concert in Devendorf Park.
So as for the first item of $50,000, do we have any more comments on that, or do we want to not worry, table that for now, I suppose?
I think we should table for the administration, but I think we should move on because there are some more pressing questions, or at least topics that I would like to discuss.
Certainly.
If I may, I'm going to be discussing the planning and building. I think as from a legal standpoint, it could raise many different issues. Like I said earlier, with keeping the charm of Carmel-by-the-Sea. And although Mr. Norman did point out that he would be protecting or preserving that charm that we have, I think if it's not broken, why would we fix it? So right now, I'd like to table that maybe for another fiscal year, or maybe when we have more issues with architecture. And then that those funds, maybe we then could give Miss Oletikin half of what she's asking for, and then we can put some money towards preserving Flanders Mansion.
I would also like to, I agree with Ms. Johnston in the fact that it is possible, Mr. Norman with the Planning and Building Committee did mention that it has been 20 years since, but I don't see why there isn't a problem in waiting another 3 years. That's just a comment.
I think to the point of that project, the urgency lies in the availability of the company, which they had previously worked with before, which to me appeared to be a very good partnership, but that is the only urgency I could see for that issue. And would you speak a little bit more to legal issues as that would raise?
Really, I'm just talking about our public. I know we have lots of people who have lived here for many years, and they love Carmel. And they don't want anything to change, and they could sue the city, or they could sue specifically the planning and building for going against what they wish, or for possibly adding to different buildings. And as you know here, it's very hard to construct new buildings or even to take down a tree. It's very difficult. So I think it could just raise many more issues.
That's a very good point. The other thing I'd like to mention for this, however, is it has been a big public topic recently. There have been issues and arguments and debates over what reconstructions and buildings have been looking like, which it just occurred to me as another reason why it might be urgent, and what I believe is the public may be in support of this, which will be included in the process that this project would undertake.
I'd like to advise here, going back to the Flanders Mansion issue, maybe we can consider taking $10,000 and further looking into this issue rather than moving forward with the whole budget at the moment, which is $315,000, and instead for the next fiscal year look into how we could actually undertake this large construction and revitalization plan, and that would allocate some funds to other departments as well.
I do support Mr. Homan's decision of possibly looking into the Flanders Mansion situation further than simply giving up the whole budget to do the whole thing without some further investigation by the city.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion?
I think, sure, I would like to, no, I don't think we're ready for that quite yet. I'm ready for that quite yet, but I did want to speak to, I don't think we've settled do we move to not fund something? Do we move to deny something?
You could move to fund one of the things you've decided on.
Okay, so we don't move to, okay.
Yeah, just move on what you'd like to fund.
Okay. Yeah, then I don't know that we've come to a conclusion yet on what we'd like to fund.
Do we have to come to a conclusion on everything at this
So
moment?
you don't all have to, so this will help you come to agreement. So somebody will make the motion, I want to fund XYZ in the amount of this, and then you'll need a second. If somebody seconds that, then it will be for discussion. If there is some sort of consensus or a feeling of consensus, then you'll ask me for the vote, and I'll do the roll call. If it's at least 3 of you vote for it, then it passes and we move on with
I think what we're just wondering is if we move to approve such $10,000 now, and we all pass that, will we be following that? Will we be able to revisit the other topics, or will we must include all?
You can take everything all at once, all together. So you can vote on everything. I want to fund projects A, B, C, and D, and E in the amount of this, or you can take each thing individually and have 5 separate motions. It's up to the council.
Okay, then on that note, I would like to make a motion to approve the $50,000 that admin is requesting, the full amount planning and building is requesting, the full amount library and activities is requesting, the $75,000 for police and chief, and $10,000 for public works, so that they can continue this project and do more work for that. Would anybody like to second that?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
I missed part of that. May you repeat that, please? Or repeat which funds and which groups and projects would be being, it's the first.
Yeah. So essentially we're giving admin and planning and building and library and activities and police chief their full amounts requested. And then public works will be getting $10,000 to use for a year. And that will make our total $288,830 out of our $315,428.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to clarify for the council that any funds that are exempt from the surplus will go into the fund balance, which is a savings account essentially.
Can I get a roll call from the clerk?
You bet. So on this item, we have a. You bet. Thank you.
Yeah,
This is
I'll
one of the clerk's fun things is listening to all the council discuss all the different iterations and then remembering which one they went with. So motion by Councilmember Glazer. I didn't catch. Mayor Bone. And then the second was from Councilmember Glazer. And the motion was to fund the requests from the admin department, community planning and building, library and community activities, the police department in full, their full amounts requested, and $10,000 would go to the Public Works Department to explore the Flanders Mansion project. Yes? And now for the roll call. Councilmember Dutta.
Yes.
Councilmember Glazer.
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mishi.
Yes.
And Mayor Bone.
Yes.
It is unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you, council and public. Stand adjourned. Oh. Adjourned this meeting at 7:44.